Good afternoon, everyone. You ready to craft an unbeatable consulting resume? Well, I am, and I'm excited to be with you on this Tuesday afternoon or evening, or for some of you, it's probably the middle of the night. So, really appreciate you joining from all across the globe to just hang out with us as we chat through a program around consulting resumes, and we're going to be busting just a whole bunch of myths, and so it's going to be a spicy session. Just yeah, excited for it. My name is Japheth Mast here with Management Consulted, joined by a couple of my colleagues, Jenny Ray, as well as Katie Neff. And so you'll get to hear from them in just 1 second. But before you do that, before we continue on, again, just a big welcome from those on Zoom, from those on YouTube and LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. Thank you for tuning in. And then, as well as folks tuning in from the Strategy Simplified podcast, wherever you're listening in from, just take 10 seconds to make sure that you're subscribed and that you're following us wherever you're tuning in from to help the show reach more people. Again, thanks for tuning in. We're about to get started. If we can go to the next slide, I want to ask my colleague Katie to come off mute and just really quickly share a couple of announcements about different management consulted programs and ways that you can engage with us in your resume journey, in your application journey, in your case interview prep journey. So, Jenny Ray, if we can scooch over to the next slide, perfect. Thank you. And then Katie, I'm going to give you the floor here for a minute or two to introduce yourself and share the great news.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Japheth. I think this is going to be a great session. I love a good resume edit. So everyone, my name is Katie, and I am not only an ex-BCGer, but I am also a Black Belt alumna. And I think what I really want to convey here is that preparing to land an offer in the consulting world is really a big commitment, and you have to commit to the process. We've found in some of our internal research that you need to really fundamentally have about 15 cases under your belt, up to about 22. That's what we see with people who actually land offers in our Black Belt cohort. So if you are ready to, take the leap, then you can scan that QR code on the screen and join our Black Belt April cohort. It ends today. And, maybe you want to maximize your preparation with Super Prep. So Black Belt provides 8 one-hour coaching sessions with our ex-MBB coaches. And in addition, you get a resume and cover letter edit after you get a few tips here. And then Super Prep gives you 20 one-hour coaching sessions and that 1 week strategy sprint experience, so you can understand the skills on the job and gain confidence in your interview experience. So if you're not sure what you need based on your circumstance, you can also scan the QR code and book a call with me, and we'll talk for 15 minutes about what the best product is for you. That will also be in the chat. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny Ray to get started here.
Okay. So here's one thing that I want to say. If you came to this meeting wanting information, you've got it. Katie's here. Write her while you're here and ask her all the questions. Also, we took a bunch of your questions that came in before the sesh. We're going to ask them as we go through it too. Japheth is going to moderate those. So if you've got a question about resumes, we want to hear it. I'm Jenny Ray LaRue. I'm a former Bain consultant. I am the CEO of Management Consulted and just a general troublemaker. If you see me somewhere out in the wild, you'll recognize me because there's going to be chaos ensuing somewhere around me. My favorite t-shirt says, status quo, please disrupt me. So anyhow, that's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to walk through the session today. This is not going to be a boring resume session. I loathe those. This is going to be a session that I think will really move the needle for you, which is all that we're interested in doing at MC. None of us like to wake up, put in the time in order to have people fail. We only like to move the needle. We like to have you succeed, and we like to have you get what you're hoping. So with that, if you've got questions about what you want to get out of this session today, why you came, what you're looking for, if it's personal and you don't want to share it kind of openly in the chat, right, Katie? If you want the question to be answered inside this session, I don't have to refer to you by name. I won't know who you are. Japheth will just say, hey, here's a question that came in. But please pop that into the general chat, and we'll make time for it as we go through the session today. We're going to talk through some upcoming deadlines. We're going to also talk about how to build your resume. There are some general best practices. And actually at MC, we're not super into tailoring your resume. I find a lot of people tailor their resume to death and never apply. We're looking for you to get application ready and then launch that thing into the inboxes of recruiters and people that you're networking with. And so I'm going to talk about how to really make one great resume instead of multiple tailored resumes that are really just fringing around the margins. I'm also going to talk specifically and tactically about mistakes that we see and best practices that we recommend for resume format, resume structure, and resume wording, which follows the same pattern that we use for all of the humans that actually take a look at your resume. We don't use AI editors at MC. We look at your resume, we look at your story, we look at what's missing from the resume, which an AI editor can never identify, and it really helps us figure out how we can help to build your story. So as we're kicking off into the session today, Japheth is going to pop up a poll. This poll is about who you are. We'd love to know who's joined us, where you're coming from, and what you're specifically interested in. This will help us to tailor the material and the rest of the session to do that. So here it comes. We just want to know where you're coming from. Undergrad and master's level students, MBA or advanced degrees, which includes JD, MD, MBA, and also PhD. Experienced hire, that could be at a junior or a senior level. So you could have 1 year, but just not be in a school program, or you could have 10 years of experience. If you're in career services, we're psyched that you're here too. And then also if you're in the other category. Oh, you guys are so well behaved. Look at this. Great. Okay, so 46% undergrad and master's, welcome. Yeah, 24% MBA and advanced degree, 23% experienced hire, and hello to all of our career service folks. So we're excited that you're here. Thanks for joining us. We're first just going to talk about upcoming application deadlines. Japheth is going to pop a link in the chat that you can, should, and must bookmark. And if you don't bookmark it, then you need to at least kind of set refreshes on the page fairly regularly, because this is the page that, in order to save your inbox, we post all of the application deadlines on for every firm that we have them for. If you hear about any that aren't on our page, I don't know if y'all know this, but our salary report is co-created with our community. We have hundreds of people every year that submit their offer letters to be included in the salary report. Same for application deadlines. So if you hear of one, if you're a career service officer and you're finding our page valuable, one of the best ways you can give back to the broader community is tell us when things are happening, because we are kind of a stop gap measure for a lot of people that don't necessarily have access to 100% of the information. This week, McKinsey and Bain released their deadlines. What's up? The race is on. So all of the deadlines that I mentioned on this page are for undergrad or APDs. They have not yet released their MBA deadlines. Some of those are school specific. Most of them have gone to a universal program. So on this page, I have McKinsey, Bain, BCG, and Oliver Wyman. What you'll see if you go to the linked page that Japheth popped in the chat is that we have many other firms that are also on there, but I just wanted to highlight the general timeline from an expectation standpoint. And we're consultants, so we're used to deadlines and we work backwards. So when I see a July 10th deadline, that means that I think you should have a resume ready by May 15th. And here's why: because you're not just going to want to drop the resume, you're going to want to network for every single day between now and then, to make sure that when your resume gets dropped, it gets looked at and you get a preferential treatment. And so you want to have the resume done because you don't want to go to somebody with one version of a resume and then launch another one into their ecosystem 4 weeks later. So July 10th is kind of drop dead date. Last year, it took about 4 weeks from there for people to get scheduled and complete their first round of interviews, and about 1 more week after that to complete second round interviews. The firms have soft launched a second deadline. So McKinsey has one in early September. They reserve the right to not utilize that deadline. We do not recommend that you wait. right? So we recommend that your deadline, just like with college applications, but more so because there really isn't a lot of flexibility in terms of if they fill their cohort, they fill it. If the macro market changes, if tariffs stick, like things that will be a part of their consideration are going to affect how many people they hire. And if they fill the spots, they're done. So we really do strongly recommend for our career service officers that you push your students to submit early. And that everybody is not just ready for the resume, but also for the case interview. So over the next couple of weeks, you're going to see us do a lot of programming on case interviews because the two, as far as we're concerned, happen at the same time. It's not like drop the resume, think about the case interview. It's start the resume process and start prepping for case interviews weeks before you actually apply. So we also see on here that Bain has launched theirs on July 6th for their first deadline and September 2nd, as I mentioned, for their second deadline. BCG has not yet released theirs, but we expect it to be within the week or so of the Bain, McKinsey, and BCG deadlines. And then Oliver Wyman, their summer intern program, which they still have a few open slots for, is on May 11th. Get in there if some of you do not have a summer internship. And then also for entry-level consultants, June 22nd. In addition, a lot of those summer internship programs, David, correct me if I'm wrong, are also for next year. So it might feel early, but they're kind of coming in hot for a year in advance. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. These are all for 2026 roles. And someone was asking, what the heck do these acronyms mean? So, real quickly, and I know every firm calls them something different, but BA is business analyst at McKinsey. That's their full-time role. SBAI is summer business analyst intern. I know it's a mouthful. That's the internship. And then AC for Bain is associate consultant and associate consultant intern. So, hope that helps.
Love that. Thank you. Yeah, SBAI, like, come on, guys. Is that just because they didn't want to have Bay be the summer intern name? I don't know, because like that seems pretty awesome to me. But anyhow, yeah, like we mentioned, right? These are US deadlines for the most part. And so also on the bottom of this, there are different in different countries. If you're calling in from outside the US, we know about 10% of you are international. If you're in the US and an international student, these are your deadlines. If you're applying internationally, they're going to be different based on school year differences. Usually they're deferred a little bit, and often more international markets are a little less chill, a little more chill than the US market is. BCG is hiring both experienced associates and consultants right now. So we also just wanted to put a PSA out there. This is my favorite season. The spring is just such a fun season. And this year in particular has been delightful because we have told y'all for years that people are hiring. And now we have a job board that tells you not just that people are hiring, but what positions they're hiring for. And you can apply right now. You can apply today. So for both internships and full-time roles, it's biased toward full-time roles. There are a ton of positions. It includes private equity firms. It includes summer interns for corporates and for consulting firms, and it especially includes full-time roles. These are consulting and consulting-like positions, and our cutoff is over 6 figures from a salary perspective. So we're really looking to deliver to you job opportunities that we think you should want. It's the only job board that's like it available in the market. We've curated it. We have people that are posting on it directly. I checked this morning, there are over 1,800 roles. It is also international. So if you're in Australia, we've got jobs for you. If you're in Canada, jobs for you. If you're in China, we've got jobs for you. So there are really amazing opportunities that are on there. And we'd love for you to upload your resume. Maybe don't do it on the call, but maybe bookmark that page. Go ahead and fill out a profile. And then right after this call, once you've fixed your resume, you can upload it onto that system. You can also change the resume that you upload. So if you just want to get on it, that's fine. The experienced associate role for BCG, which is open right now, and we expect it to close in under 10 days. That's kind of falling after what we saw for Bain and McKinsey's springtime hiring roles. We expect that the experienced associate roles, which has more city availability, you'll see the offices at the bottom of here, will be a little bit more open. The experienced consultant role is very narrow, so apply as quickly as you can for that one. It's only in 4 offices: Chicago, Nashville, Minneapolis, and San Francisco. Japheth, anything I missed before I transition over into how to build your resume?
Nope, let's rock and roll.
Great. Awesome. So, like I said before, I could care less about a McKinsey resume, a Bain resume, or a BCG resume. I want one resume. I am strategically lazy as much as I can possibly manage to be. And I want you to be the same. I don't want you to have seven resumes. I want you to have one. I want it to be great. And I think, again, a lot of people focus on tailoring their resume rather than making one great resume. So rather than jumping straight to the resume rules, like how big should your font be, I'm going to start by thinking from the position of the person who's reading your resume. This, in sum, is what they're looking for, which is why they don't use a lot of AI readers of your resume. They use humans because sometimes it is difficult to tell the difference between somebody who is thinking about your potential and somebody who's thinking about your experience. So number one, I am looking for you to have demonstrated that you work on short and focused projects. Guess what? You have to tell me how long your projects were. So I need dates and durations of your projects inside your resumes. The reason for that is that I can translate almost any environment into consulting, but one of the big hallmarks of a consulting experience is that it is a short and focused project-oriented role. It is not 20 months of implementation. It's 6-week sprints upon 8-week sprints upon 12-week sprints. And so tell me that you've done that with a team toward an end and completed from diagnostic to analytics and implementation, a project the whole way through. The second is that you've done high impact work. If you don't tell me who the audience was, what the impact was, or that it made a difference, you're just basically retelling me a job description. We get a ton of resumes like this where you just retell us what your job description was, and we don't care. We don't care that you like synced up reports 40 times a week. We don't care at all. What we care about is the one time that you found an error in the reporting process, fixed it, and made your team 26% more efficient, right? So high impact work, whether it's a moment in your career or the major part of what you've done, I am evaluating you based on that. Number three, solved quantitative problems. I need you to tell me that you've used analytic programs, that you've used Excel and other kinds of analytic programs, and also that you can speak in numbers. So one of our core rules, and you'll see this reinforced later, is that every line must have a number, and all numbers on resumes for consulting can and should be written as numerical digits, not as words. So we break English language rules. By the way, what a dumb rule. Numbers under 10 have to be written out as words. We break that rule. It's just easier for people to scan and understand and internalize your numbers. But if you can't put a number in a line, it's super easy. Delete it off of your resume. We're very hardcore about this. There is not one line that is allowed to be left on that has anything other than a number inside it. Also, we want to know that you worked for places that know how to make money because guess what? Firms' bills get paid by the money-making organizations that they work with. So we want you to be psyched about growth in profit organizations. Some of you love social justice. So do I. So did I when I applied to consulting. But I needed to demonstrate to them that I also could help organizations that make people money, that staff large organizations that are similar to the types of places that they serve because they don't need a counter revolutionary inside their organization. They need somebody who's going to be down to do whatever is asked of them, whether that's chicken farming in the Midwest or chemical manufacturing in the Northeast or something in oil and gas in the West, right? Any of these are all important, and we want to see your consistent enthusiasm across actually ideally more than one industry. That really helps me demonstrate intellectual curiosity as well. Finally, I want to see that you've been in heavy teamwork situations. I need you to draw mental pictures for me in the words that you say about how you've worked with other people. I want you to tell me that there were 4 people on a team, 11 people on a leadership team, that you led a team of 46 people, that you led a team of 4 people. I want to see that you have contributed in teamwork-oriented environments. Almost all of my questions in the fit interview portion of the consulting structure and the interview is going to be like, tell me about a time that you worked with a terrible teammate. Tell me about a time that you had to understand what the issue was underneath the issue. Tell me about a time that you had to influence somebody without positional authority. And so walking through all of those ideas and issues, just tell me on the resume, like that, not just that you did something, but instead of saying we did X, just say with a team of 6. We did the following thing, right? And then what you did in particular will, of course, always be super important. Firms are really crappy at telling you what you're actually going to do on the job, which is one of the reasons why I don't recommend tailoring your resume, because what they actually actually do might be super different than the jargon that they use to describe what they do. They're going to say things like, you travel first class. I don't care if you want to travel or if you don't want to travel. What I need to know is that if I ask you to travel, you're going to travel. And if I ask you to stay home, you're going to be cool with staying home, right? The things I need to know are that you are able to conform in an environment like this for a season of your life. Go to offsites and happy hours. I don't need you to tell me how fun it would be to work with these people because you want to hang out with them outside of work, right? Writing on whiteboards and windows, like this is not a very strategic role. This is very, very analytical for the most part. There is strategy layered upon analytics, but a lot of people have a mistaken identity with what you think you're going to do on the job all day long. Also making an impact on clients. They say that you're going to make an impact, but what they really mean is they're going to make clients more profitable. So again, really measure things with very clear detail when you're telling the story about it on your resume. Here is what you actually do all day. About 10% of your time is research. So if you gathered research or information from multiple different sources, I'm working on a public policy project in California right now that's pro bono. A lot of the people that are working with me are from the MC community, and a lot of what we do is research. But somebody couldn't just say worked on research project. They have to say identified 16 public and 4 private sources to gather what kind of data set. Like I'm talking about really granular detail that makes these stories come to life. Excel or other analytic programs is going to be 60% of your role. It's shocking to me how many people have used it, but don't tell me that they've used it. So you can't tell me that you're proficient in the program. That I don't care about. What I care about is that you applied it in a problem-solving context. So I need to see it visualized in the context of a specific problem. I also would love to know that you've presented to somebody, although actually the resume doesn't tell me a ton about this, and it's not the most important thing. Neither is the fact that you like to meet with people, right? Recruiting can matter if you've done recruiting roles. If you were a summer intern with a different organization and you went back to campus and you became a de facto recruiter with them, tell me the metrics of recruiting, right? Travel, I love to see that in the personal section of your resume. The weirder, the better. Opens up great conversations. But again, don't need to see that inside your resume itself. And then how much you sleep every night doesn't necessarily need to factor in either. In addition, there are 3 kind of application review processes, and you have to write your resume with all 3 of them in mind. So the first one is a computer screen, or right now, it's an AI screen, although every organization doesn't use AI. Some of them use machine learning or other kind of subcomponents of AI. These are usually for positions that are keyword based for larger organizations and for a specific position. So if you're applying for an operations analyst in healthcare with 4 years of work experience and an MBA, that's the type of role that a computer screen could be effectively used for, because it's going to really highlight for that organization whether or not you're a direct match with the requirements of the role. For the general roles, like I'm talking career services, undergrad, MBA, like they're looking for everybody, and they're really a lot more flexible and open, and usually they don't run you through a computer screen. The follow-up for a computer screen is usually a human screening call from someone inside the kind of HR organization inside the consulting firm or the firm that you're applying to. The second one is the recruiter screen. So recruiters are looking for skills specific roles. It's a human screen, but it's not done by the professionals that will work with you. It's done by a team that works to support the pipeline of talent going into the organization. It's very skill specific. So they're looking for people that have a certain number of characteristics. They're looking for their overall impression of your pedigree. They do a quick scan, and then they often will schedule a screening call. They're not the ones who usually determine that you make it into the interview, but they certainly can determine if you don't make it to the interview. And then finally, the professional review. This is utilized by the majority of firms. The idea, which I honestly just didn't register for me, didn't think through this before I was in the consulting environment. Their product is you. So they're not actually just buying people as a pipeline, they're buying a product. And so they think about you in these kinds of firms super differently, in the same way that actually like legal profession or accounting firms think of their people, because it's the people that really make a difference in these professional services roles. So in that professional review, I'm looking for your potential. I'm looking for somebody who may have been an Olympic athlete at a D1 school who also did a degree in engineering, right? I'm not looking for a direct line like that you did case competitions and that you studied business analytics. I'm looking for an extrapolated sense of top performance. And I'm looking for it ideally across multiple different categories. I want to see that you won in the job. I want to see that you won in the classroom, and I want to see that you won as a leader, outside of the classroom as well. These programs, when we did them at Bain, we actually provided individual numerical ranking to come into the room to discuss everyone. We did that based off of the resume solely. Occasionally, firms will also include a cover letter, but usually it's used in the actual professional review, not the pre-review. And then the list is cultivated into a couple of different sections, which I'll show you on the next slide. There is a review and a discussion session, and then a follow-up after that with the interview. The professional review places you into one of three key categories. The three key categories are the A-list. The A-list are people that by default will get an interview unless somebody tells them that you've done something super terrible, or you already accepted an offer from Goldman, or you're doing the Peace Corps for 2 years, right? Like there are competing opportunities that are also excellent that may knock you off the A-list, but usually if you're on it, you're in it, you're golden. And there's a couple ways that you can get on that list, right? Partner networking, winning at the numbers game when people are actually doing the pre-review, pre-selected candidates often coming back from prior years of experience or through different channels, including diversity channels, and then finally the pro list. The abyss are the people that don't pass the resume screen. If you don't put numbers in, for example, that's a really easy way for them to can you. It just makes your story really boring and not interested to engage. Then in addition, the to discuss pile is going to be medium ranking candidates and rescues from the abyss. These are the ones they actually spent hours deliberating over to determine the remainder of the interview spots after some of them are filled by the A-list. Just a couple of other things that I think are important for you to know. There are a few things that they look for on the resume. Like I mentioned already, they actually want to see you bounce around, not 40 times, but 2 or 3. Having a variety of experiences, being able to speak to those can be incredibly compelling. The exception for anyone on the call who is in that experienced hire category who's applying to partner roles is they do actually want a depth of experience in your partner role. So they'd like to see that you did something in healthcare for the last like 5 to 7 years, not 3 things in healthcare and in let's call it like aviation and consumer products, right? That's going to be a lot more confusing. So specialty in the very senior parts of your career, I'm talking 10 plus years of experience, are great. But before that, I just need to know that you can do that. I can like drop you into different environments and you thrive in all of them. I'm looking for Excel skills, have already mentioned that. Again, I just need you to really explicitly articulate it. I'm also looking to see that you have 1 or 2 substantial leadership roles. Consulting as a practice involves the use of non-positional influence. I need to get data from Mavis, who works in this data department of this Fortune 1000 firm. And Mavis doesn't like me because Mavis thinks that I'm a jerk or I'm young or I'm going to take her job. My job is to get the data from Mavis without talking to her boss, her boss's boss, or our client contact, right? These kinds of leadership roles on campus, in your local community, et cetera, are parts of that. So right now I'm on the planning committee for the Northern California Venture Conference. It's happening in May. That's an example of the type of leadership role. It could also be club leadership. It's not participation in a club, it's leadership. Anything that you just participated in can be reduced down into an aggregate bullet point, either in your personal section or in your education section. Employee or academic awards. I want to know that you're a winner. Like out of 40 people, you got the scholarship. Out of 200 people, you got the grant. Out of 60 people, you got the, red ribbon award, right? Like whatever it was that you won, I want to know that it was you. A lot of people we find brag poorly on their resume. What I mean by that is that they like under brag or don't brag with clarity. Tell us exactly what it was with confidence. We do want to see that you were successful. I'm also going to mention here, a lot of the top firms use scores as a filter. So they're looking for both your like either MCAT or GMAT, or they're looking for your SAT or ACT scores. They're also looking for GPA at the undergrad level. At the MBA level and above, they don't care. Just graduating from the program is what they're looking for. But at the undergrad level, they do think there's a difference between somebody who got a 3.1 and somebody who got a 3.6. A 3.6 to a 3.9 actually doesn't matter a lot to me. But under a kind of B plus average is really problematic for a lot of the firms. So some of you, your only takeaway after today is going to be to go hit the books, study, and get your GPA up if you want to take advantage of some of these roles. That resume will matter for you for the first 4 years of your career. So it's not just while you're in school, it's after as well. There are also key things that consultants say that they look for, but don't really care about, right? So your entrepreneurial experience, they don't really care that you led a startup unless you sold it, unless you raised over $500,000 to run it. But if you just like had an idea and executed on it, it's a leadership activity as far as they're concerned, or it's a work experience, depending on where your gaps are and where we decide to fill it in. Non-relevant leadership. I once had a woman who was the head of a pole dancing club at her university. Like, I love pole dancing. I think it's incredibly athletic. It is super duper the wrong perception for you to share with somebody in a professional environment. And so I had a show of hands in the meeting that I was in, like, who thinks that this should go on the resume? Yes or no? She was like, there's budgets, there's planning, there's people leadership. And it got pretty overwhelmingly voted down, right? Because in general, if I'm reading your resume, I don't want to picture your pole dancing. So relevant leadership includes things where you are with teams of people, and especially if you're using a laptop in a team of people, right? These are the kinds of experiences that are really going to make a difference. Lots of activities, case or consulting related activities. I actually really want to know that you care about consulting. I would love to see that you participated in, for example, a case competition. They're valuable. They are super valuable. But if I have the choice between somebody who didn't participate and somebody who did, and that's the only difference, it'll matter. It's a tiebreaker, though, not a core component. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, look at me, I was in this consulting club. You could have also been in a robotics club, and I would be equally as interested in you. So just recognize, like, you should do that stuff to test your own interest, to train in your skills, but not necessarily because it's going to make a huge difference on your resume or in the drop process. Being weird and wild and outside the norm is always more compelling than being in the mainstream. Lots of activities, general awards, and industry certifications. Like, they're kind of just like, look, if you can do a lot of stuff, that's great. I just want to know if you can do one thing at a time really well. General awards, dean's lists are kind of like expected, right? Just not impressive. Needed to know that you would do that. Industry certifications like Black Belt, Six Sigma. Sure, love that you have it. If I really need you to have it, and I think you should have it based on your experience, but don't have it yet, I'm going to pay for you to go get it. So a lot of those are just lower value from the key focus. And then the last thing that before we kind of dive into the content, I'm going to take a couple questions from Japheth and from the chat. There are 3 things that we review inside your resume to make it pristine and to completely change the storyline. That's your format, your structure, and your content. So Japheth, what are a couple of good questions from the pre-submitted questions or from the chat that fit in with what we've talked about now before I go into the details of the resume document itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of questions around like brand names, big company names, and there was one in specific around like if I have a brand name resume or or a brand name company, but I didn't do all that much, my experience there wasn't that impressive, versus a non-brand name, but I really did a lot, got to show a lot of skills. Weighing those two, which one would be more important?
Okay, great. Brand names every day. Right? Because there's actually a hallmark of the fact that you got hired there, not just what you did there. And I don't hire anyone at most of your levels for your experience. I just assume that you know nothing and I'm going to train you. Bain made me feel a lot smarter than I was before I came in the door. And the first day I got there, they were kind of like, you are an amoeba. You know nothing. We hope you will develop into something delightful over time, but we'll see if evolution takes its course. And so it was a kind of wild process and an insight that was really important for me to get. But these firms have such radically powerful leadership development programs and an apprenticeship model. They just need to see that you can do it, not that you have. And so, again, those brand names are always going to win the day. They're easy to talk to. Like there's a saying in the marketplace that nobody ever got fired for hiring McKinsey. Like nobody ever got fired for recruiting and interviewing the kid who worked at Google, right? Like if you take the entrepreneur, they may or may not work out. The kid at Google probably will. And so that's the way that they think. They're pretty risk averse organizations. I personally, though, that's not an either or question by nature to me. I'm not like, oh, this one experience was great and this one was awesome. We're talking like they want 3 bullet points max from every experience. So if you have those two experiences and you were trying to decide what goes on the resume, put them both. As far as I'm concerned, they should both be in your experience category. What else?
Yeah, so there's this myth out there that you need consulting experience to be able to apply to a consulting firm.
False.
Can you bust that?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. In fact, sometimes firms are like, "Oh, you did that consulting experience." So you might want consulting experience because it helps you to verify that this is something that you want to do. I think that's super legitimate. You do not in any way, shape, or form need consulting experience to succeed in consulting applications. You need business experience. They care that you care about companies. That's who they serve. But doing this job doesn't matter. Let me tell you about the only time it does for managers. All right. I do not want to hire a person who has never managed a consulting style project. I generally am confident that you're going to fail in a consulting environment. I actually will hire partners that have never worked in consulting firms, and I will hire associates and analysts. But managers are the one level where that does apply. Everyone else, I apply for your capability, for your potential, for your, wildly interesting intellectual curiosity, but not for the work that you've done before, and certainly not the consulting work.
Great.
By the way, should never intern for a firm. This is just like free advice that you didn't ask me for. Never intern for a firm that you don't want to work for later because you want to take offers away from a summer and parlay that into maybe a better opportunity. But that's your backup offer. You want to be able to go back there and be stoked about it. So I think that sometimes people like don't get what they could get out of those experiences if you don't think about them as long-term investments. I was guilty of that. Like I took a job right before I traveled around the world that honestly for me, like I wasn't really thinking about going back to, and I learned some out of it, but I wasn't super invested.
Love it. All right. Let's move on, and we've got the chat covered, and we'll take some more questions here in a bit.
Let's go chat. Let's go blow it up, guys. Okay, so consulting resume formatting. So the first thing that we do when you get your resume is when we get your resume, if your school does not have a pre-designated format, which we ask you when you submit your resume, we are like, let's make this look like a professional resume. Some of y'all just need a couple of basic guidelines and rules. Okay, so for the formatting perspective, you need a minimum of a 0.5 margin. I can't tell you how many times, like it looks desperate if you use any more than that. Sorry, any less than that. If you're like cramming outside the whole way, it potentially is readable in PDF format, but it's just not great. So anything that is under a 0.5 margin, font size should be small. Like I usually set mine to 10 because oftentimes you submit something with a bigger font size or a tiny font size. A tiny font size, you're talking to old people like me, right? I need to read this resume and I'm the person that you want to read it because I'm the one who can give you a direct interview. And if I can't read it, I throw it out. This is the same thing, by the way, for me in case competitions. When people put crap on a slide that I can't read, I'm like, you're out. I just score you at super low. So the same issue is true for these font sizes, like 10 to 11.5. And if you're in doubt, set it at 10. That's a really great baseline for the numbers. The spacing, your resume should be single spaced across the board, but there can be a half a space, a 0.5 space in between each entry, but there has to be a space in between each one of your entries. So in between like, brand name experience and entrepreneurial experience, there needs to be at least a half a line in there. In addition, you should always use box underlining and never, ever, ever paste lines because when we edit your resume or when anybody else edits your resume or just in general, if they can tell that you use pasted lines, it's kind of like, that's really cute. What a sweet middle schooler resume. So I'm looking for something that's a little bit more serious than that. We recommend that you use tabs when you're building your resume. It builds accuracy for placement. And in the grid on your format, that you use only black and white. Do not use highlights or color. There was this god-awful trend a few years ago where people started using graphic resumes. They would like tell the story of their life. It was like a graphic novel. I'm so glad that we're kind of past that. But if you think about it, don't do it, right? I'm not looking for that from you. You know why people did that? They were freaked out about networking. They felt like the resume needed to stand alone. Your resume is a small tool. It's like a nail, you're the hammer, right? Like it is a small piece of the application process if you're doing it right. And so they felt like the whole thing needed to live alone and stand alone. But this is just like the entrance. This is the key. This isn't the house. You're the house. You're the value. You're the person that they want to see and talk to, and they want to do it before they actually ever see you inside the interview. In addition, we do recommend serif fonts. But we recommend clean sans serif fonts if you absolutely must use them. But I think serif fonts look a little bit more serious and professional. We recommend using those across the board. I'm just going to go through these, Jay. I'm thinking, right? Consulting resume structure, and then finally the wording, and then we'll take some questions at the end that come up. Okay, gorgeous. So again, if you've got questions, pop them in the chat. We'll either respond to them there, or we'll bring them to the larger audience. The consulting resume structure, this is the second thing that we do. We cut and paste. Like this is my favorite thing. So I'm like, oh man, I don't like that this is here. I'm going to move it to this section. This whole section is too long or too skinny. I'm going to make sure that this section gets kind of some space allocated for it. And I'm going to start pulling stuff in from the content. I'm going to leave placeholders in there for the things that we want to hear more about. How do you do that? Well, there are really three core sections of the resume. The heading up at the top, I don't really count as one of the sections. It's literally just your name and your high-level contact info. That can include your email and your phone number. And in an era of remote work, that's really basically all that I need. I don't want an overview from you. It's really not helpful. Even if you have a long-standing work experience, I need you to rely on both a cover letter, an introductory email, and potentially also your networking experience to be that overview on top of what's on your resume. For the other three pieces, education, experience, and leadership, those three parts are really valuable, and they're going to go either education, experience, leadership if you're currently in school, or experience, leadership, education if you're not currently in school. Finally, the personal section, I think, is one of the most important. Why? Because when I was at Bain, I was strategically lazy. And so I would always start with the personal section, and I would look harder at a resume where somebody had a spicy and interesting personal section. So if you tell me that you like long walks on the beach, then I'm not that interested. But if you tell me, and reading, right? Reading and long walks on the beach. I have a 7th grader, by the way, that loves to read. And when people ask him about his favorite sport, he always says reading. But what I'm really looking for is color, right? That you love chocolate tasting from Central American chocolatiers, or that you love like Southern French wine, or that you think that it's really interesting to go pizza tasting in every city that you go through. Food plays great, sports, arts, like anything that's kind of something that you'd want to chat with about a person with a stranger on a plane. Those are really, really good pieces to have in there. And again, one of the things I think that a lot of people miss is that we want your work experience to be around 40% of your total resume, but we do want to have a nod to leadership, and we do want to have a little bit of educational information in there as well. The leadership and education sections start to skinny up a little bit for my 5+ years of work experience, folks. I just turned off the sharing, which I didn't intend to do. So I'm going to jump it back on. Let's see here. Where's my actual document, guys? There we go. Okay, awesome. So anatomy of the winning resume is kind of the second piece that we do. And this is where I think we make a lot of gains, because the story is balanced when we rebalance it like this. The third piece is where we spend almost all of our time, though, on your resume. So if we're going to spend an hour editing your resume, which is the average amount of time that we spend, we're going to spend the majority of it actually in the words, the lists themselves, really trying to bring your story to life. And here are 4 things that you mess up consistently enough that I put it on a slide here so that we can help you make them better. Whether you decide to work with us or not, we really want you to succeed in your application process. And you'd be astounded at how much a edited resume makes a massive difference. The first piece is context. A lot of you jump right in to tell me what you did on a project, but you don't tell me inside Coca-Cola, for example, the organization that you were working for, how many people were on the project, how long it was, what the core objective was. So you just tell me that like you ran analysis on 40 attributes of customers for Coca-Cola, but I don't know what that was all for or what the end business gain was. So providing context can both be a good way to grab a number and put it into your line, but also it gives me really important perspective when I'm entering into every new entry. So every first line, I'm looking for really strong context in that line. Best practice is actually great context in every line. Every line is going to have an action word, and I do really love it if I never see the same action word on the resume. The maximum amount of times that we allow you to use the same action word is twice. So if you find yourself saying like managed, 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 led, organize, 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 stop doing that and mix them up and then find some other synonyms. I know that most of you have probably never actually even seen a thesaurus, but that's an old school thing we used to use to kind of try to figure out another way to say something. Again, edits can help you with that. An outside perspective can help you with that, but really trying to focus on variety is great. I definitely want to see results where you have them. Sometimes they're outcomes, sometimes they're awards. A lot of the time, they're actually projections. In fact, inside consulting, when we told somebody to do something, that was the outcome. The outcome was our recommendation, not the implementation of it. And so it can be like this was projected to save $2 million, can be an absolutely reasonable and appropriate result. And then finally, quantification in every single line. So pages, the number of pages that you worked through or built, the number of team members that were on a team, the number of months that something took, the monetary value that you looked at, any percentages, all of those are incredibly valuable to really bring clarity to your story. Because if I write on my resume, worked with a team to change efficiency versus worked with a 4-member team over 3 months to reduce call volume traction by 42% and increase overall operational efficiency, super different perspective around what your experience actually was. Okay, I've talked a lot. If y'all want to work with us, we'd love to work with you. And we would love to get your resume back quickly if you need it. Expedited turnaround is available, but we more than appropriately really love to get you your resume in advance so that you can drop it as all these great opportunities are coming up. But right now, I'll just kind of leave the slide up for a few minutes. You can also use this QR code to stay connected with us. I'm on LinkedIn at Jenny Ray CA if you want to connect with me there. And then Japheth, we'll jump over to the questions. So just go ahead, lay them on me.
That's awesome. I think it might even be helpful to have Katie like give a 36 overview of what the editing process looks like. Give
Yeah.
me Katie, while I'm pulling
Behind
up
the
some
scenes,
questions.
yes, let's go.
Yeah, yeah,
Caitlin.
Yeah, I'm answering lots of questions. So our resume and cover letter edits are designed to give you a final document that you can submit basically to any type of firm in consulting and corporate strategy. We don't tailor to each firm. And what we do is we take your resume for the first round of edits, and we're going to kind of expand it and fill it in with lots and lots of questions and send it back to you so that we can pull all kinds of information so we really understand your story. When you send it back to us, we're going to take that and then consolidate it into a final version and send it back to you. Each of these rounds, it's 2 rounds total, take about 4 days. And if you're in a rush, we have an expedited turnaround of 48 hours that you can pay for, and that would be for both rounds, 48 hours. So we're really proud of our editing team, and if you just want to take that off your plate, sign up now, send us your resume and cover letter, and we're happy to edit it for you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Katie. I think that's helpful. Yeah, great team over there at Resume HQ. So, all right, let's take some questions. Number one is, should I include a skill section, yes or no? If yes, does it make sense to put it right after your like education section before experience up at the top?
No. You put it in personal, they'll find it if they want it. It's there largely for AI readers or screeners. And you're going to want to mention programs by name. That's really the only thing that's in there. It's not like analytics matters, but if you have to know Python, then put Python in there. So you're going to match those kinds of skills up with the types of questions that are inside the information. You put it in the personal section at the bottom under a bullet point titled skills.
Great. One tag on there is don't say Microsoft Office, say like Excel and PowerPoint, right? Just for the screening programs,
Boom. Yep.
the
Agreed.
ATS. All right, does the resume have to be one page or are there exceptions?
Yeah, you can make your resume 19 pages, but they won't read it. I mean, I don't know. We get this question every time, and it's like, no, they only want one page, y'all. We make you a one-page resume. Even for APDs, they're like, sure, you can apply with, a 9-page resume, but like they really want a one-page resume from you. So we would really, really recommend that you get it down to one page.
Beautiful. All right, promotions. So let's say someone's had like 3+ promotions.
Yeah.
Should I break that out like by promotion, right, for like a separate section for each promotion, or how do you do that when it's taking a lot of space?
Great. Yeah, when we're editing that, we reduce all of your earlier roles into one bullet point, and they are the same role formatting, but under the same heading of the company and the location or the timeline. So depending on the format, that'll be just maybe slightly tweaked. But yeah, we don't really care to know 5 things that you did 3 roles ago. We just mostly want to know about the role that you're doing now. So we're going to have one summary bullet point for each one of those older roles, and then the majority of the bullet points, usually 3, maximum 4, but ideally 3, underneath the core piece that you did last, which is either current or was the last part of that role. It's great for us to see that you were promoted. That's a good hallmark of your success, but we don't want to know a lot about what you did before you got promoted.
Love it. Should you mention if you speak multiple languages? Yes, definitely. Put it in personal, either like a separate languages bullet or combine it with skills if you don't have the space. But yeah, get the language and your like fluency with that language. If you speak more than 2, like if you're applying in the U.S. and you only speak English, like don't include that. But like if you know more than that, definitely. All right. How do you approach quantifying hard to quantify outcomes?
Um, well, either you get help or you think through all the metrics that I had before, right? Like how many team members were there? That's a really great one. How long did it take? Also a great one, right? How much money was involved? So again, a lot of people get stuck because they think that the numbers can only be in the outcomes, but I actually am really interested in having you describe your context with numbers too. One of the reasons that we make you do this is that we have zero interest in getting you interviews without jobs. And when you're in an interview, if you tell me a story that is vanilla, boring, and has no specifics in it, then I'm not going to hire you. So I'm actually wanting you to start to get into the mentality of speaking with clarity and numbers. It's one of the ways that people who are in these kinds of professions carry weight in the environments that they're in because everything that they say sounds true when they add metrics to it. Most of the
There's
time,
a
it's also true. But
there's a life hack.
yeah, it's true.
You got to say it with confidence.
Yeah, baby.
Amazing. Is it important to include locations?
Locations?
Locations like city, state, or country.
Yeah, I
That's
do.
your
Locations help me to picture you. Again, like your job is to create a mental picture. So if I imagine you in Chicago and then in Denver and then in like Sydney, Australia, then I have a really different picture than if I just imagine you in some kind of like nameless, faceless officer firm. So a lot of us have some kind of associated emotional memory with different places, and this can help to trigger that, creates connection for your resume.
Love it. Everybody's looking at your resume as a human, and they want to connect with you. Speaking of humanizing yourself, is a personal section of the resume really important, or can I,
Yes.
cut that?
No. Vital. It's vital. Like I just can't reinforce for you. You are not a robot. You are a human. They like you. They want to like you. They want to work with you. They want to nurture you and develop you and challenge you. And you like being 3D, the skills section is the only piece of your resume that gives you that.
B3D.
Be 3D.
B3D. Love it. All right. Well, it's open season right now, so I'm going to the Zoom chat.
Awesome.
Let me see how important is networking for
Important.
internships?
Massively important. It's not the only thing that's important. I would never tell you that if you don't network, you won't get the role. But I don't know. I don't know why y'all are hanging out with me on a Tuesday if you aren't going to be the maximum amount of ambitious that you could be, right? So like network and talk to people. It's a two-way street too. You kind of would like to know. I mean, I networked, but then I got a job offer in banking, and I didn't take it because the networking was not like I was like, I don't want to become like these people when I grow up, which is totally fine for you to come to that conclusion about this type of thing too. But top performers network and they know it. And so if they haven't heard from you, they automatically make an assumption that you're not a top performer. It's vital. I don't know how else to say it, but it's really important.
Someone asked, do you have to call the personal section personal? Can I split it out into two sections called
No,
skills and interests?
no. But you don't have to call it personally. You can call it other, or you can call it something else, but no, you can't split it out
Additional
into different sections.
consulting firms they want less information, right? They want you to be
That's right.
concise. Everybody's
They
got
want
too
it to
much
be tie hot,
information.
spicy in a very limited amount of time, right?
At what point should we remove high school information as an undergrad?
Starting at the beginning of your sophomore year.
Great.
So get busy, freshmen.
What are the best?
You'll need to
Yeah, get
get
busy.
wild. What's that?
What are the best ways to master Excel?
Yeah, do work that requires Excel or that you should use Excel for. Actually, I don't really care about Excel mastery. I care about a enjoyment of Excel that you like could open up Excel and figure something out in it. Most of the Excel that I've used since consulting and most of the Excel that I used before consulting was not as advanced as what I did in consulting. But I knew I could do it and I knew that I didn't hate it. And those are really the things that I'm looking for when I'm explaining that you're walking through Excel. I don't need a super high level of proficiency. I need to know that it's a tool that you're capable of using. So we have a program called Strategy Sprint where you can build a model on the job for an actual work stream. I think that that can be super helpful. Those kinds of programs are really valuable. Strategy Sprint is a part of their super prep program.
Boom. It's coming up next month, May
Yeah, it is.
17th. Yeah, so get on that. All right.
Is
We're at one
proficiency
past
in
the
Power
hour.
BI or Tableau attractive? Yes, it goes in skills. Mhm.
Boom. All right. Let's end with this networking question. Should I mention to my networking connections that I have interview invites at some firms to show that I am, like worth interviewing?
Yes. Yeah, they actually really appreciate knowing, especially if you have a real like targeted interest in working there in particular, right? But for somebody to get on the phone with you, knowing that there's a deadline, that's going to help to motivate them. And it certainly does. Like if you're like, hey, like I've got an interview with Bain, and I'd really love to interview at McKinsey, like 100%. Once I got my McKinsey interview, it was much easier to get my Bain interview when I was doing it. So yes, you can mention it. You have to really just be authentic with what you say though in those interactions. You can't say, I'd love to work with you if I get the opportunity to interview with you, and then like go back to whatever the firm was that you used to leverage an opportunity there. Like playing the leverage game can't be a tactical thing, but if you're kind of like, I think they would probably want to know because I'd love to interview with them and I think it could be a great fit. If it's sincere and authentic, it works really well, really, really well.
Beautiful. All right. Do you want to land the plane?
Yeah, overall, just want to say thank you all for coming. I hope that you learned a lot today. You walk away with a better resume. If you want to work with us through Black Belt, Super Prep, or resume and cover letter edits, we'll help you with your resume one way or the other. If you don't want resume or cover letter edits, you can convert the credits for that in some of our premium programs into just more hours that we can work with you. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined. Thanks for your questions. Don't overcomplicate it. Create a great story. If you need help, we're here to help you. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers. See you on another call soon.